Hey guys, and welcome to Monifactory Progression Log 16, I believe, at this point. Um, it's been a little bit of a slower week, from me anyway. Cosmic, however, has been getting a lot of work done, so yeah, I've been a little bit of a mess this week. Mostly because I'm just in that phase of, man, I really want to be done, and I'm kind of starting to like rush stuff, even though I really shouldn't, and I probably really need to take a longer break. I didn't play yesterday, but I probably just need to like not play for the next couple of days, because I am kind of the burnout is hitting me pretty hard, for Monifactory. Um, but we still have plenty of things to show you. And I guess we'll go ahead and get started. We haven't added too much over. Oh, we can go ahead and talk about the battery. Let's see how much it's filled. 4.4 trillion? Let's see. 100,000, million, billion, trillion, quadrillion. Okay, so it's 4.4 quadrillion. The power is still more or less okay at this stage. We are making our way towards creative energy because this base has actually spiked to 320 million EU a tick draw. So this base, when everything is running, is exceptionally power hungry. For reference, that is 1.2 billion RF per tick draw. So mechanism fusion reactors eat your heart out. You'd need around 5 of those things to power this base consistently, through a battery, which is fucking mind blowing. By the way, I've never built a base that ate this much power. I think ATM-9, even at its most power hungry it ever was around 120 million, I think. It was never really ate all that much power relatively, because it don't like when in terms of Greg Tech, that pack only went up to UHV, where this goes to max voltage. Um, Anyway, moving along. So over here I added and swapped some autoclaves around. So I added gravistars over here, and I also switched the flux infused gems to the autoclave over here. We did have them on a single block IV, and it just wasn't really fast enough. I recently rebuilt a bunch of miners, and I've put the micro miners, and I've put them all on passive and stuff with level emit. And that has been the stress test of all ages. It really has been exceptionally expensive, as well as stress testing both power as well as all setups throughout the entire base. And the last couple of days have mostly been us running around and fixing slowdowns or things that just don't work anymore for whatever reason, things that stopped working. You know, filling in all like the holes, all the gaps and stuff that are really hard to tell unless you really have a long-term like stress test. Like if you have to have like massive long-term energy, both energy and resource consumption to really check on a lot of things. And we never really had anything that really stressed it like this, and that's been obviously we now do have a real stress test. There haven't been any changes in here. Mostly, I'm just gonna continue wandering around the base. I know we've added a bunch more machines over here. The last time, mostly various actinium components and some neutronium components as well. Again, gravistars are still here because I haven't moved them away. Um, but eventually I may just tear this out, but for now it's kind of like whatever. Yeah, but there haven't really been too many changes in the factory floor, especially since we've been moving very heavily towards multi-block passive systems in general. The factory floors, which were meant for like single-block passive stuff, have kind of fallen by the wayside, but that's how it goes. I guess we can go talk about the EBS now. I think actually this was here last week. I did upgrade this to UIV. I gave it a 4 amp UEV energy hatch yesterday or the day before, something like that. As it is the slowdown now. I believe Dark Solarium is fine as well. We have Infinity Line on passive now. We set up Infinity Ingots. You can do that through. There's a couple of different methods. So we have a few thousand now. Infinity ingots initially are made with a single infinity catalyst. The problem is this is one heart of the universe and it's a 1-to-1 ratio. But you can also make this with some other catalysts, like the Serene Infinity Catalyst and the Furious Infinity Catalyst, and it's more efficient. This only takes one heart of the universe to charge, but you get four, for example. And this takes one heart of the universe to charge, and you get 16 in total. So this makes it cheaper in terms of heart of the universes, but their initial craft is fairly expensive. Like the Serene Infinity Catalyst contains singularities in Monium, which requires the T12 miner, which we don't have yet. However, we can make the Furious one, And the initial Fury, and it gets recycled, right? So you make the Furious Infinity Catalyst, and then it becomes dormant, and then you can just charge it again to turn it back into it. So you can cycle it through. And the initial craft is fairly expensive, and you actually need infinium first. You need infinity ingots first before you can actually make it. So you have to make a couple of the bad recipe before you can make the cheaper recipe, as is standard in Greg Tech. Um, this does require UEV emitters and holmium foils, so that implies that we have those systems, and we do. We made those things. We set up holmium a couple days ago, and we set up Cosmic set up UEV stuff a couple days ago as well. We've been fairly busy up to last couple of days, in which case, like I said, I've been kind of taking a break. I'm really burned out on Monifactory. I just kind of get this feeling of like, man, I really want to be done, so part of me really wants to rush for it. Really, oh, if I get on and grind hard enough, I can be done in like a week or something, and that's just really not the case. And I really need to, just, take it slow, accept that it's gonna be like a couple more weeks at least, and not try and race it. I don't have to race. I don't have to beat somebody, to win or whatever, right? I can slow it down. Netherite here, we've been massively increasing it because once again we have been putting the microminers on passive. Um, Activated netherite has been consumed at a ridiculous rate. We've had to basically increase the energy hatches and parallel hatches in this setup twice over the last week, I believe. Now it's up to super parallel control hatches, and most of these machines are either up to, if they're bottlenecks, they're generally up to UHV or UIV. It looks like we're gonna have to upgrade the arc smelter again, as it looks like it is more or less the slowdown again. I'm not exactly sure why it's slowing down so much, why it's not doing the full 256. Oh, I'm getting arc furnace. Because it has the power to do it, but it's not doing more than 74, and it keeps us, going back between 54 and 74. And I am not exactly sure. It might be because of the small output hatch, so I might have to upgrade that. I guess we can go ahead and just take a look at that. We could just do an ME output bus too. I can type, guys. It's fine. Look, I haven't had enough caffeine this morning. Okay, I have my tea over there, but it's a little bit too hot to drink still. Um, there we go, and hopefully that will make it do 256 128. Okay, there we go. Good. That was it then. Hopefully that'll help with the bottleneck. We still do have a ton of ancient debris left to process. We have 95,000 right now. Hopefully we'll get a little bit more. We do have to make some more tungsten miners, and there's been lots of other bottlenecks and various things that we broke and fix over the last week. And I actually, normally I don't play on Saturdays originally. Like I get on and then I record and then I'll play. However, there was a broken setup this morning that I really wanted to fix, so I just fixed it and then I started recording. But it looks like activated netherite is at least okay for now. We do have a pretty significant stockpile now, 75,000 ingots. And especially I imagine we stockpiled because all the miners stopped working, and I'll go ahead and talk about that in a minute when we get over to the multi-block passives. Because I ran face first into a limitation with applied energistics and how it does subnets, surprisingly. I really should have thought of that before, but I'll explain that later. Over here, I did mention last week that we needed to do a little bit of reshuffling and some changes to ore processing in order to process holmium in here, because I didn't really want to build a separate setup, because if you look at holmium line, we can get alien scrap, right? And this is done in a sifter, which we have in here. Ruined machine parts are also done in a sifter. We have macerators, we have electromagnetic separators, we have centrifuges. We also will need, let's see, crush sensors, which is a thermal centrifuge, and then this is an autoclave. So a lot of the machines that are used in holmium line are effectively ore processing machines. Machines that we already had in ore processing and that were already set up, except for the electromagnetic separator. And actually, I should come back over here. And over here, we didn't have enough room for another additional machine line with its own drive stuff. So what I did instead was I actually ripped out the autoclave specifically because we didn't, or not the autoclave, sorry, the large chemical reactor for processing dense ores here, and I wanted to put the electromagnetic separator here because I felt it was more useful in our processing, whereas dense ores can be processed somewhere else and then just dumped into our processing from outside of it, and I felt like that was a lot better, and it is. So if we come back over here, I actually went ahead and rebuilt a lot of this stuff. I don't actually need this large fractioning distillery anymore, especially since we have infinity cells and I can just toss it into some of the other, like the drive lines that actually need it. But I haven't really cared to tear it out. Eventually I probably will, but for now it's fine. I might just unplug it and just leave it here just so it stays there. But I rebuilt the packing machine, the large crystallization chamber, and added a large electromagnet. I reorganized these things too, so this one does kind of go over onto the glass because it is 6 blocks long, but it's behind it, so you guys wouldn't have even noticed unless I told you about it. Right, so, we have the large crystallization chamber here, and this does nether quartz and, a bunch of other stuff as well. As you guys saw, the holmium compound requires liquid PTFE to turn into a holmium dust. So, again, that just gets dumped into here. And this is upgraded with the Giga Parallel hatch at UEV, and it runs pretty fast. It really does everything we needed to do. A lot of these sifting funnels are also running at UEV. A lot of the machines are, especially because if we look at alien scrap again, if we look the sifter and stuff, if they have so like many of the ore processing multi-blocks and ore processing things in GregTech, running them at higher voltage tiers increases the drop chance for byproducts, and that is the same thing as it is with sifting alien scrap. So the higher voltage we run the sifter at, the higher chance we get for more holmium resources, which is really expensive. We want to get as much as we can out of every alien scrap, because it does require a T11 miner. You do get 6 stacks of alien scrap, but it's still very, very expensive. So by running a UEV, we have a 41% chance at an additional alien ruined machine parts drop, 58% chance at an additional one, another 41% chance at an additional one, and a 33%. You always have a 33% chance of ruthenium, tritium, americium neutroniate dust. Say that 3 times fast. Though this stuff really isn't that particularly useful for us at this stage, as we have that tanked. So, yeah. I really am happy with a lot of these other things. I think I did actually, yeah, these are all upgraded to UV. So the large centrifuging units are at UV now. So those are actually a lot better. Coming over to assembly lines, it has been massively expanded. It's about twice the size as it was before. It's now officially the largest area in the base. Building a lot of like I said before, we are putting the various miners on passive, and how we're currently doing that is through the requesters, which means Applied Energistics can just do all the stuff on demand if it really wants to. However, that does mean that miners take a long, long time, especially these higher tier ones. It mostly has to do with the universal navigators, which are ridiculously expensive and take a very, very long time. So I wanted to put as many of them on passive as we could. Many of the subcomponents that go into miners as on passive as we could, and that meant a lot of assembly lines, like a lot of assembly lines. Last time you guys saw this, it was, I believe we had 8 or so assembly lines here. Might have been 10. 10 assembly line slots in total. And now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 18, 19 assembly lines here to be used. And I believe this will be enough for us currently to passive universal navigators once we have it all set up. Unfortunately, we do want so in order to make universal navigators, requires many components. Most notably, the UHV circuits are made through wetware processor mainframes, matter processor supercomputers, dimensional processor assemblies, and monic processors. The problem right now, we are at the matter processor supercomputer, which is currently an assembly line recipe, which means that if we were to attempt to put if we wanted to do a universal navigator while using the matter processor supercomputers, it would require another assembly line, which we don't have room here, and I am not particularly interested in expanding this room again. So before we can put universal navigators on passive, we want to do dimensional circuits. As, like I said before, the UHV circuit. If we take a look at the UHV universal circuit, so if we go up a tier to dimensional processor assemblies, that's a circuit assembler recipe. Even though it does require, so it is a processor assembly, right? So you have processors, assemblies, supercomputers, and mainframes. And generally, processors and assemblies are generally, like, once you post assembly line, are generally assembly line recipes. Once you move back down into the assembly tier of circuits, then that's a circuit assembler. So we want to move into the assembly tier of dimensional circuits so we can move it to a circuit assembler so we don't have to build another assembly line. And we're not that far away from dimensional processors. We have to set some stuff up. We have Homium. We basically just have to actually set all the crafting stuff up, as we do have most of these things already ready to go, like the hyperdynamic like RAM wafers. Those are already done. Activated netherite, obviously we have that done. Complex SMD inductors requires titanium, which we have. Polyethyl cyanoacrylate, what we have. Homium, which we do now have. Not too much of it, unfortunately, but we do have enough for some of these, for these circuits and things. SMD capacitors, again, PBI, holmium, cyanoacrylate. I guess that's PCE or PEC. Or I don't know what the acronym for that is. PECA, whatever. So yeah, we are fairly close to getting, moving into dimensional processors, which would be pretty big for us, especially since we have two more tiers left. We have dimensional processors and mnemonic processors, and then we are done with circuit progression for the rest of the pack. One other thing I would like to note is that we got we got actually two new creative items. We have creative energy access, so not energy, sorry. We have creative data access hatch, which gives either a data bank or an assembly line access to every research in the game. So we no longer have to do research anymore, and we actually don't really need to do data banks anymore either. So I might tear some of them out down in here if we need to add more assembly line space, because I don't really want to expand it. As much as I really enjoy having, I really like the way these data banks look, and I think it looks really cool, especially to have them down over here. But if we do need lines for more assembly lines, I will tear them out, as like I said, I really don't want to expand this room anymore. It is already by far the largest area in the base, even outsizing both the Deep Mountain Complex as well as ore processing. It's getting pretty far away from where I would like the base to be centered around, which is the canyon and the water and stuff. So, yeah. Hopefully we won't need any more assembly lines, at least passive assembly lines. I'm not sure. We'll have to see as we move forward. But yeah, so we also, like I said, we had two new creative items. And the second one was the Creative Computation Provider. And the Creative Computation Provider just provides infinite computation, or is not necessarily infinite computation. It can produce infinite computation. It's just however much computation you would like to put into your whatever multi-block it's a part of. So over here we have the Creative Computation Provider feeding into the Subatomic Digital Assembler, and right now we are feeding it 1 million computation units per tick, which effectively makes every recipe in here 1 tick. The reason we did this is in order to make the creative dinner, because I was asking Cosmic while I was working on something else, probably assembly lines or something like that, if she could, start doing research for UEV and UIV. And she really didn't want to do a lot of that research, especially since there's a lot of research you have to do, so fair enough. And it takes fucking forever at higher tiers. You have to sit there and wait for like 2 minutes or something for some of them. So she was like, fuck it, can we actually do creative energy hatch, or, the creative research hatch? And the answer is yes, but we have to do a bunch of other stuff first. Especially since if we look at the creative, what is it here? The creative access hatch requires 256 computational units per tick, which mean we would need about 10. We would need 8 HPCAs over here. Obviously, we do have 8 HPCAs now. But also the computational unit provider requires another 256. So the idea was to make the creative computational unit and then use that for both the research station and the subatomic digital assembler. In order to provide as much computational units as we need, and then we could use that to make the creative data access hatch, which means we wouldn't have to do any more research, which would be also really nice. So yeah, we have 2 more creatives. Both of those things can be done with the tier 11. We can look at the creative computational data, which requires a tier 11 and a bunch of other random things, as well as the creative. Let's see. Maybe creative energy, or not. I keep saying energy hatch. Access hatch. Oh, it's just another recipe from the creative computation data. Creative computation does both the computational provider as well as the data access hatch. So yeah, we're pretty good on that now, so we don't have to do more research, which is pretty nice. We also overclocked all of these assembly lines to UIV now, so each one pulls a grand total of 33.5 million EU per tick. The Universal Navigator is cut down to 38 seconds from the base 300 at UV, so we're saving a lot of time here, but it still is pretty slow for Universal Navigators, which is why we want to put them on passive. At this stage, it is one of the slowest components, if not the slowest components, in any miner that actually uses them, and they are used especially Sun Eaters and above, use them quite a lot. So if we look at assembly line, or actually that's ultimate crafting. So the T10 miner uses 2 of them, the T9 miner uses 1 of them, and let's see, the T11 miner uses 2 of them as well. Assembly line uses them for extra dimensional navigators, which gets used in the T12. So we do need a lot of these things, especially like I said, these miners run on passive based on level limit. And I guess we can go over and see the microverse projectors now. I finally got around to rebuilding them. I was really not interested in doing that. Oh, I guess now that we warped into the trophy room, we can go ahead and show this off. So, Cosmic we got a little bit bored waiting for stuff, I think, and decided to build a trophy room because before, if we come to the central core, we were just kind of placing the trophies all around the edge, and it wasn't really that cool, and we were just kind of keeping them out of the system. So she went, fuck it, we're going to build a trophy room. So we have, the ULV trophy, we have steel, so this is LV, then we have MV, HV, EV, IV, with tungsten steel, and then we come back over here for LUV with rhodium plated aluminum palladium. Then we move into, I believe this would be ZPM for Naquita and Naquita alloy. UV with darmastidium. Moving into UHV with neutronium, and then obviously we would need the blocks of we would need the UEV trophy and the UIV trophy. I don't know if we get those trophies. Actually, if you look on Discord now while I'm playing, you'll see that up until a couple days ago, it still said we were in IV, and we very much were not in IV. It has to do with quest progression specifically related to circuit tiers. When hitting the processor tier of a specific circuit, completing the quest specifically, that's how it changes the Discord integration, as well as giving you the trophies for that. So we finally got a bunch of trophies, like we should have. Yeah, so we do need to get the once we have the matter or the dimensional processor, we should get another tier of or I think actually maybe once we hit dimensional, it'll give us the UIV or the UEV circuit tier. So I don't know when we'll get those trophies. They might not even give us those trophies. Maybe there's nothing in the pack yet. But yeah, so we have the trophy room, and then if we come over here, we could see, a nice little cave and stuff. It looks really cool. I was really hoping we could use this area for something. I do really enjoy building a lot of cave stuff, and we hadn't really used the cave thing for anything. Like over here, if we come down to the caves, this was actually where Fusion is now, was where we were sort of planning Petrochem originally. Though we did never get around to that, we just put Petrochem somewhere else. But we did end up using that cave for Fusion. Over here in this cave, we obviously used it for microverse projector stuff. Setting up some of the earlier microverse projectors and some of the various components on passive that were needed for them. And then over here, we obviously have the LCRs as well as the Deep Mountain Complex. So we had used pretty much all of the caves around us for stuff. And we hadn't really used this area underneath Central Core for something. And I kept kind of looking in here where we should put it, and at points I thought maybe we could put the discharger in here, or the Skulk Bioalloy Charger. I was never really that sure what we were going to put in here, and we never really ended up using it for anything, so I'm really happy that Cosmic finally managed to build something in here. I really enjoy it with all like the hanging lanterns and stuff. I think this area is really awesome. I really like this area. I don't get to spend much time in here, mostly because there's nothing in here to actually like do progression. And this week has been kind of like a really unhealthy, unsustainable grind, unfortunately. So I haven't really spent too much time in here. But this is a very nice area. I really like it. It's very cool. Anyway, moving on to microverse projector stuff. So like I mentioned before, when I talked about level limiting microverses and putting them on passive, I finally rebuilt this area, and you might be wondering, Robo, why aren't you doing the single storage, like the single stocking bus to, multiple recipes? And I found that's because partially if you have one stocking bus with multiple different missions inside of it, it won't run any of them. It does get stuck on recipe conflicts. And if we attempt to do something like uh, okay, before I talk about this, actually, I want to go ahead and talk about the laser engraver first, as this is an important. I'm going to go ahead and talk about like the face first, the A limitation that I ran face first into, and this was really confusing for me. So if we go ahead and take a look at this, as you guys know, down here in the laser engraver, most of the time for the other multi-blocks, we were using to cut. We used to cut off the interface from the network, like especially in HNNN, we stopped feeding it items in order to turn it off. However, one of the problems we were having with the laser engraver is that by turning off the interface, it wouldn't turn off the lens. So it would always have that lens. So that was always kind of conflicting with various recipes and kind of breaking things in general. So we thought, okay, well, we'll just cut off the storage instead in general. And that is fine, specifically if you have the interface filtered for items. There was a specific rule for applied logistics that I didn't know of, and that is you cannot interface with a subnet through a storage bus in multiple times, even if those storage buses have filters. That means one of the problems we were having is for assembly. This is also really important for the assembly line, or not the assembly line, sorry, but the multi-block assemblers. One of the problems I had set up with these things was I had given them originally 16 parallel hatches, and I was feeding them 16 recipes worth of items. But it only pulls the ME stocking buses only pull every 5 seconds, so it's doing 1-tick recipes and then sitting still for 5 seconds, and then doing a 1-tick recipe and then sitting still for 5 seconds. As well as if I wanted to upgrade the parallel hatch, that meant I would have had to go through every single interface and refilter them all for the higher tier parallel hatch, feeding them more and more items. So I thought, well, instead, what if we leave the storage bus, the interfaces unfiltered, but filter the storage buses and cut the storage buses off? That would effectively mean they would be subnetted into mainnet or the between net to make sure that the toggle buses don't recalculate mainnet all the time. And that means the stocking buses would pull or be able to read specifically all of the materials for whatever recipe they would want to run, and then they could run as many recipes as they wanted to or could. There is but the problem with that means is the problem I was having is since you can't interface into a subnet with multiple storage buses, that meant if I had 2 level emitters on, it wouldn't update the second level emitter. It would stay on one, and then once that one turned off, then it would turn on the other one. The problem with that is we do have some nested crafts, or specifically if we had multiple crafts that wanted to go on at the same time, if multiple level emitters turned on, it wouldn't turn them all on, and sometimes the whole assembly line was locked up. And that was actually what I spent like 20 minutes fixing before I started recording today, was going through all of these storage buses and interfaces and just filtering them with oversized interfaces. Because I was hoping that interfaces are like, oversized interfaces take like a stack of normal interfaces. If we just go ahead and craft one, it takes 16 regular interfaces to make one ME oversized interface. And obviously crafting time and the expense for all these things is negligible to us. It really doesn't matter. But I was kind of like wanting to see if we could just use regular interfaces, especially since we just have a ton of those laying around at this stage. But unfortunately that was not the case, and because cutting off a storage bus, or specifically adding a storage bus. If you turned off one storage bus and you removed it, that would hide the items from the assembler subnet. Again, sorry guys, I'm not like moving the camera or anything, but I'm talking with my hands. I kind of do that a lot. So the assembly line could be cut off from items, but if there was another storage bus on already, it wouldn't be able to see those items. And it wouldn't be able to see those items until every other storage bus had been cut off. So if there were nested crafts that it would want to do, specifically for like the Hadal energy cores over here, very specifically, as well as I think there were some other things throughout this this assembly line assembler, that would cause it to lock up. And that's what I had to fix. So effectively, what I wanted was, to be able to have the assembly lines pull as much as they wanted through the subnets, and that doesn't work. That's the applied logistics limitation I ran phase first into. So once again, I just had to, resort to ME oversized interfaces and just feed it. I've been feeding it generally 256 recipes worth of items, and that has more or less fixed it. So I'm glad I fixed that, but that means that couldn't really do parallel hatches. It's going to be a little bit of annoying to upgrade some of them. And going back over to the microverse projector, the hyperbolic, partially, again, I couldn't use, multiple stocking buses, partially because of causing recipe conflicts and meaning that wouldn't work, but also because of the subnet storage bus limitation issue. That meant that if we had multiple, especially it was really bad. I only figured this out because of I wanted to use a single advanced projector too, for tier 10 microminers. They require a shattered. So for Hearts of the Universe, they require corrupted universe data, and corrupted universe data requires a nested craft. Or let's see, if we look at shattered universe data, this requires a universe creation data, and then it gets processed down to corrupted eventually through subatomic disassembler. But this requires, so we have to do another nested craft effectively, in an advanced microverse projector too, and that meant that if it wanted to run, let's say, a tier 10 miner mission, but it needed to craft a Sun Eater for that in order to run the universe creation data, and it turned on that storage bus, it wouldn't run that mission. It couldn't pull those items, so it would just lock up and then just not work. And I had built a small little setup, a test setup. I won't include the clip here in order to get so you guys. I'll just post the clip in like my Discord or whatever. So if anyone's really specifically interested, they can see what that looks like. It is like a surrogate system using a bunch of levers and redstones and stuff, so you guys can see effectively what was happening rather than like the actual system. But unfortunately, so we had to do a little bit of messy stuff here, and honestly, like it was a little bit of a messy system. So I just had to eventually I just broke down and just broke it between a bunch of distinct stocking buses, each one with a different recipe. So that fixed the problem just fine. I really should have switched to that a lot sooner. I did spend like an hour and a half attempting to debug the system and figure out why it wasn't working, and then asked in the Monifactory Discord, like what's going on, and then someone went, oh, that looks like an applied logistics role, and I'm like, oh, cool, I didn't know that one. So I learned something about applied logistics. My tea is no longer too hot. It's actually kind of getting kind of cold. Right, so moving on over here, we have the quasi-stable neutron star recipe. We have our Hadal shard recipe, our Warden heart recipe. We have our stellar creation data recipe. The holmium, this is the holmium, the alien scrap recipe. It's level emitted on basing on holmium dust. We have the Hearts of the Universe recipe. Don't want to accidentally change that. We also have our corrupted universe creation data recipe. I believe we can just make corrupted universe data through the hyperbolic. Yeah, hyperbolic, it just consumes shattered universe data as well as shattered star data, and it makes one corrupted universe data. And that gets used in a couple of different things. It gets used in the better Hadal shard Warden heart recipe, the better quasi-stable neutron star recipe. It also gets used in quasi-exempt demonic heavy plating, which we haven't. That's UXV and requires T12 stuff. So we haven't done any of that stuff yet. That's all monic here. But it does also allow us to do a better Heart of the Universe recipe. Instead of doing like one miner to one heart, we can get one miner for 16 hearts, but it does require an investment of 8 Hearts of the Universe initially fed into it, an upfront cost. But you do get, it's 2 to 1, so you do get like, profit, which is nice. So if we go back to the DMC as well, I added another microverse projector here. So we have our single advanced microverse projector, and then we have 2 advanced 2s down here. And again, this works the same way. We do have multiple individual distinct stocking buses, each with their own individual recipes. We are still cutting off the storage bus here, but that is fine, specifically because it is a subnet on its own. We don't have multiple storage buses pulling from the mainnet. This only breaks down if you attempt to put multiple recipes or multiple storage buses onto a subnet. So by breaking them up into individual recipes, where only one recipe is being done on one stocking bus, it means we can actually do cutting off the storage bus with an unfiltered interface, subnetting, and pulling as many as it wants. That way I don't have to filter those things. So there are ways of getting around it, and there are ways of doing it that way. It won't work for pretty much any of the other multi-blocks that we're passiving because there's so many different recipes. We cannot afford to build that many multi-blocks, and by afford, I mean we don't have the space for it. I have to dig out a ton of area. As you guys saw how many different recipes we were doing over here in the multi-block assemblers. We'll just go ahead and teleport over there, and then we'll come down. There were there were a lot of recipes. Obviously, we cannot afford to do an individual stocking bus for an individual, for each individual recipe here. That would take dozens of assemblers, especially since we're gonna have more and more assembly recipes as we move on. I'm sure we'll have multiple, continuing into UV and UEV and UIV, and eventually, I believe Max as well. Yeah, I don't know if there's any UXV things. There's UXV voltage, but there's no UXV energy hatches. I don't know if there's any max energy hatches either. Oh, there are. Okay. Which is 2.1 billion EU per tick. Oh boy. So that's kind of strange how you do skip a tier. It does require UXV without being any UXV energy hatches. But I guess that's just Greg tick for you. Anyway, so coming back over to the Deep Mountain Complex, we've added a few more, more than a few more machines. We've added a ton of various molecular assemblers here, producing various nuggets as well as kind of various components used in making the miners. This is where I moved carbon fibers to. Originally, they were in a multi-block autoclave, and this is where we originally had the flux-infused gems. However, we don't use that many carbon fibers, and we do use a lot of flux-infused gems. So I just swapped them out. I put flux-infused gems in where the carbon fibers was, and I put the carbon fibers where the autoclave, where the flux-infused gems used to be. There also used to be an LCR over here making wetware circuit boards, and we moved it back over here to the old LCR area. Originally, this was making HPIC wafers, but holy shit, we were chewing through them so fast. This one ZPM assembler was just incapable of keeping up. So we buffed both the UHPIC wafers as well as the HPIC wafers in terms of buffers, both up to 24.6K, as well as moving HPIC wafers to a UHV chemical reactor. We're also making skulk catalysts over here in a large chemical reactor. There's a couple of different ways of making this stuff. You can make it through a loot superfabricator, which is what we were doing for a while. And then eventually we were making them through the worse Hadal shard recipe. And this was fine for a while. So in terms of the advanced microverse projector 2 things that we do over there, we have the worst Hadal shard recipe and the worst heart recipe. And that is specifically so because the better recipes require a little bit of both Hadal shards and hearts in order to get running. So if we run out of hearts, like we have now because the various miners have shut down and we do have passive consumption of hearts, if we only have the better recipe for hearts, we'll get locked up again. So I have the worst recipe set on a different lower threshold. So that only turns on if effectively the higher tier recipes can't work anymore. So we basically ran out of skull catalysts at one point because we were only running the better recipes and we do passively consume the skull catalysts. So there are multiple ways of making the skull catalysts, like I mentioned. They are made through, you can make them through the large chemical reactor, which is what we're doing now. You can make them through loot fabrication from like Warden predictions, which we could do, but I didn't really want to use Warden predictions since we're using that for a lot of deep dark data, especially. It gets used in a lot of other things, and I don't really want to use skull catalysts for that because we can make skull catalysts through other ways. We can also run it through a worse Warden Heart recipe, but again, we're already running a better Warden Heart recipe. Specifically, the hyperbolic recipe that gives you a stack of Hadal shards and a stack of Warden Hearts. So I didn't really see a point in wanting to run a microminer recipe for Skulk catalysts. So originally we were doing it through, loot fabrications and stuff, but because we have unlimited fluids, and this requires berkelium, which would have been really obnoxious without tank, this just requires some stone as well. You need one skulk catalyst, so I just went down. I know there's a bunch of deep dark all over the ground, all over underground. So it only took me a couple of minutes to go find a skulk catalyst, and I just picked one up. And this is not consumed. The skulk catalyst is not consumed in making the the more skulk catalyst. It's a duplication recipe. It is kind of slow, but we are running this at UHV, so it's really not that slow. It gets paralyzed, I believe, a stack at a time at this stage. But some stone, some XP juice, some berkelium, all good. You get 16 skull catalysts that way. Bam, done. And this is also where I moved dense nether quartz ore, as we were one thing so where we get ancient debris from, where we put that on passive, as we do need that for activated netherite, obviously, also gives you a stack of dense nether quartz ore, and we don't really need that stuff. I didn't really need to process this stuff, as before I even turned on the processing, we had about 700,000 dense nether quartz ore, so it was closer to like 9 million regular nether quartz ore to process. We didn't really need it, because by that time, before we even started processing it, we had 88 million nether quartz, which is 22 million blocks. So that was a lot of stuff, a lot of nether quartz. And now we have 182, just short of 183 million nether quartz. Because I thought it would be funny to process it. I just wanted to do it because I thought it would be really funny. And it is. So we have a lot of that stuff. And we just do you have to combine nitric. Let's see. I can show you guys. Dense nether quartz ore. This is just dense ore in general. But dense nether quartz ore requires some nitric acid, which is free for us. And dense nether quartz ore in a large chemical, or in any chemical reactor. And that breaks it down into 16 regular nether quartz ore. And if we go ahead and run this at UHV, I believe it does like 1,000 recipes at once with parallel or something like that. It does a lot. It's a lot. So it's very, very fast, and it broke all 700,000 ore down in like 10 or 15 minutes or something like that. So we started processing all of it in ore, and this is not stored in a drawer or anything, because how ore processing is fed materials is Applied Energistics stores it in LogisticsNet. It's not pulled from it. So it just gets dumped into it. So I just have an ME output bus on this. And it looks kind of bad, dumping directly into mainnet, but I promise, guys, it's fine. It's fine. So if we go over and look at ore processing, I believe it's not really processing any more nether quartz at all. And the reason why this is okay to have 182 is I finally made a couple of 256 mega storage drives. So these have a lot of storage, because we were actually filling up the 16 mega. It was like 75% full, and I knew it wouldn't be able to store all this stuff. So this 256 million will be more than enough to store all the nether quartz. I hope. If we do need another one, they're not that expensive. I can just build another one, and I'll just dump it in there. I don't really want to overflow void it, not because we need the nether quartz, but I just want to see how much we'll get by the time we're done. It's going to be a lot. I think it's really funny. I really wanted the ore processing to do stuff, too. The ore processing hasn't really been doing a whole lot of stuff since we got to tank, which I kind of knew it wasn't going to do a whole lot of things. Mostly the things it does is process dilithium, for example, or monazite. Nice. But we don't really... I needed to move the miners again. Oh, I also want to mention is we also moved where dilithium was being autoclaved. Before it used to be being autoclaved in the microverse area, and we have 400,000 dilithium crystals now. But because we have an autoclave over here and an infinite drive, I just gave it an infinite... I just gave the autoclave subsystem, the autoclave subnet, an infinite PTFE drive for holmium compound, an infinite helium gas cell, again, also for, for dilithium. I could give it an infinite, distilled water, and I might eventually, but I don't really care at this stage. And maybe I'll go get around to doing it just so I can save the 133,000 DU a tick on the distillation tower over there. But I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. I've got a lot of other things we've got to do. Let's see. I don't know if there's too much else to talk. Oh, there is something I have to talk about, and I almost forgot about it. Cosmic built Eltsline. Over here where we are originally, where I built this area for additional EBS and ABSs. As before we hit tank, we were kind of running out of space for both of those things. Fortunately, I didn't need to use this area too much. We only put one ABS over here, though I had planned out room for 8, I think, as well as another 8 EBFs. Though we never really ended up needing any of them. Well, we needed like one ABS, and then once we hit tank, I just tore all the ABSs out, obviously. So this area wasn't really doing anything for a while. We also were doing refrigeration over here, like mass refrigeration for liquid air, liquid ender air, and liquid nether air, as we do need to distill those things for various useful gases, like tritium, deuterium. We also needed neon, and then, argon, nitrogen, oxygen, various things from all those components, or from all those liquid airs. But again, once we hit tank, we tore all of that stuff out. So this area wasn't really doing anything, but it looks like it was the perfect size, or just short of the, or just a little bit more than the perfect size for Elt's line, which has been great. So we do have Elt's. It is exceptionally power hungry. When Elt's line is running, I believe it pulls in total like 120 million EU a tick. So it pulls about a third of our production, which is that's a lot. This is mostly because of the reactive dust mixture recipe, as well as all the EBFs that I assume, have been overclocked. Like I said, I didn't build any of this. This was all Cosmic. Like I said, Cosmic has been hitting the ground running in this week and has been getting a lot of stuff done, whereas I kind of rebuilt the microminers myself, and that was, I believe, obviously I did assist with some assembly line stuff. I did a lot of expansion I did the expansion of the area and added 4 or 5 assembly lines, and then Cosmic did the rest. I added I think we added the quintessence. No, I think we did that last week. Um, I added the new microminers, and then moved the large chemical reactors. So I didn't do as much stuff as Cosmic did this week. Cosmic built the new creatives and stuff. That was very helpful. Anyway, so if we look at maybe it's not reactive dust mixture. It's it's inert dust mixture. That's the expensive part. And this draws 31.5 million EU a tick. It only does it for less than a second. So it doesn't pull that much. It pulls a lot, but not for that long. However, it still is a very large draw. And looking at all these blast furnaces, they're all this is UEV, UEV, UIV for the autoclave, and then we have the large electromagnetic separator, which is also a UIV, the centrifusion unit, which is a UHV. So it's a very, very, very power hungry line. So we're trying to make our way towards creative energy, which would be very, very helpful, especially since, we could add more turbines. We could just rip out the NAC reactors and throw another block of turbines in there, maybe 2. And that would definitely solve our power problems, at least for a little while. But we are going to be moving into UXV, which is a lot. Let's see, max energy hatch. That required UXV. And this is 80 million EU a tick at 1 amp UXV, which is, holy shit, a lot. That's all I have to say. Almost a third of our production capacity by itself for one machine. Well, one assembly line. Another nice thing about Elt's line is we also get some actinium dust here as well. Actinium is a byproduct, which is very, very nice. It's already been, because before we were making actinium dust through, you can make it through an electrolyzer. Not this way. You can make it you make the small dusts through the electrolyzer. By combining uranium hexafluoride and the neutron emitters, you get a 10% chance. We were running it at UEV, I believe, so we have a 22% chance or something like that per small actinium dust. Unfortunately, this is quite an expensive way of doing it, especially since the neutron emitters take fucking forever to craft, and they also take PECA plastic, which also takes fucking forever and can't be tanked. So, it does take a while to make actinium. However, you get actinium iron oxide dust as a byproduct of making Elt's ingots. So we do get a nice little byproduct of actinium over here. So that's nice. I think that's probably about it for Elt's line. This is a very expansive line, and it's kind of nightmarish, which is, I was like, oh boy, I get to do Elt's line, but also kind of like in the, oh no, I get to do Elt's line, But Cosmic went ahead and did it, which was very good because I kind of just kept stalling, like, oh, I can do Elt's line tomorrow. Oh, I can do Elt's line tomorrow. Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. It's fine. I gotta do this first. I gotta do that first. And even though Elt's line was one of the main materials for UEV, and it was kind of the thing that was holding us, or UIV, sorry. It was kind of the thing that was holding us back from getting a lot of progression done. Once we started really doing those materials, especially Infinity, ingots, and Elts, we kind of really started accelerating. Especially, one of the big things as well, too, is getting the microminers level emitted was really, really big for us. Unfortunately, it looks like it all broke again. Mostly probably because of the locked up assembler, I bet. And that looks like that is the case, as we are seeing some of the hearts roll in, and we are seeing a lot of these microminer crafts as well. When I got on, we were out of SMD capacitors, and I was like, how did that happen? And then I went to go check the assembler, and I went, oh crap, it all locked up. And then I spent like 20 minutes fixing about half the recipes. There's still a bunch of them that I have to go through and fix as well, like swap them out for the oversized interfaces and then filter them for a bunch of resources. But none of them were on at the time, and I kind of did want to record, but I also wanted to get that stuff running because this stuff is slow. Holy shit, is it slow. Even though the server's running 24/7, it still is very, very slow. So I did want to get that running as soon as possible. And I do believe we probably, out of all of the micro miners we eat, I believe Sun Eaters are probably the most. They're used especially in making the universe creation data, which get used in making corrupted universe data, which is used in making the Hadal shard recipes, the Warden Heart recipes, uh, the Heart of the Universe stuff, lots of various things. And we do have 14,000 Hadal shard recipes. I believe this is because we consume a lot more Warden Hearts than this is because we consume a lot more Warden Hearts than Hadal shards. Warden Hearts are consumed passively via Ultimate Material, which we do have on passive. It takes 42 Ultimate Materials to make a single ingot of Dormant Infinity Compound, I believe, or something like that. It takes a lot. It takes a lot. If we look at Ultimate Material, it gets used as well as making dimensional circuit boards, as well as dimensionally stabilized infinity heavy plating, skull compatible. We don't really, this is what we use it for partially as well, but it does get used in a bunch of these infinity things, and specifically internal catalyst is what it gets used a lot in. And it takes a lot of internal catalysts to make a single infinity catalyst. I believe this is 32 internal catalysts, which is half a stack of ultimate materials. And infinity catalysts, fortunately, we don't use that many of them anymore in terms of some of the things. Well, I mean, we still use 8 to make the Heart of the Universe stuff. So it takes 8 of that. 8 times 32 would be 4 times 32, which is 120. So 256 ultimate materials per recipe of Hearts of the Universe, and that's if you do the good one. If you do the bad one, it's a 1-to-1. So we use a lot of that ultimate material. And we were buffering 2,000 of it, and I thought, oh, that'll be enough. Because I did see in the Monifactory Discords, I don't know if people were doing it on demand, but they were running their assembly line that was making ultimate material at like 2 amps UE. It was like 77 million. It was like just short of UXV worth of power. And I'm like, well, if I put it on passive, it'll be fine. We won't need to do it on demand. And I was buffering 2,000, and I thought that would be good enough, and it wasn't. And it looks like we had a buffer of about 30,000, and now it's gone. So I'm gonna have to figure out why this isn't working anymore. Probably because it's missing something, maybe like Dragon Scale. Let's see, Dragon Scale. No, it might be. It's probably Warden Hearts. Yeah, it is Warden Hearts. So that we're gonna have to let that run again. Come back over to the. Let's see. The central core, we can go ahead and see. I pulled out the bounty block as we don't need money coins anymore. Oh, I haven't bought anything with them in forever. They're useful early game, but by the time you hit like IV or whatever and more processing multi blocks, it's kind of like whatever. So as you can see, we're out of Warden Hearts again. So it's going to be running all those miners eventually. It does need to make more corrupted universe data, which means more Sun Eaters, and we're also out of Hearts of the Universe, so it's running those recipes, which requires universe creation data because it's doing the bad recipe first. So we eat a lot of creation universe data. So we make lots and lots of Sun Eaters, which is partially why I want to put universal navigators on passive, as they are the slowest part of it, and I think that would save us a lot of time. Anyway, I think that's probably about it. I don't think there's too much more. DMC hasn't really changed too much besides, adding another universe projector or whatever, and it works the same way as you do the hyperbolic. Eltsline was the really big thing we got over the week, as well as Infinity. I think those were probably... Getting Homium, Infinity, and Elts in 1 week was really, really big. That gets us very, very close. Those are some of the last materials we'll need for the rest of the game. The last one will be Monium, which comes from miners only. You can only get it from T12, unfortunately. The other thing was buffing Netherite as well. So that we've gotten a lot of work done, and eventually we're not too far from making dimensional processors. I believe we can pretty much make it now. We just need to sit down and actually do all the crafting recipes, as well as put them in the assemblers and stuff. And we might need to I think we actually have to passive nether star lenses and infinity plates, but those are single block machines, so not a problem. It'll take me 5 minutes to do that. So let's see, we can take a look at dimensional processors as well. I'm curious. I keep looking at this. Yeah, actually, I put LUV sensors on passive. I think this week as well. And then we take a look at quasi-neutron stars, which we have on passive. Oh, this is actually, sorry, the monic circuit board. To make the dimensional processing unit requires activated netherite, which we're good. Holmium foil, which we have. Iron 3 chloride, tank. And then we can make dimensional processors, which requires multidimensional CPU chips and all these complex inductors, as well as holmium. These are all just fine holmium wire, as well as crystal matrix dust and stuff. So we have all of the various components and all the various materials we actually need to make dimensional processors. We just have to sit down and do the craft. Anyway, so I've definitely rambled for way too long. So I think that I'll go ahead and cut it here. I hope you guys have had a good week. Mine's been, a little bit mixed. Like again, I've been kind of like doing the weird like rush. Let's just get it done. Let's go. Even though that's definitely not sustainable, and we're not even that close to being done. Like I said last one, we probably have another month. And at this stage, I think we'll probably finish around mid-May, maybe late May, on the outside. So we're not that far away compared to how much time I've put into it. And speaking of time, I guess we can go ahead and take a look at statistics. Time played is almost 25 days, which means we've officially passed my playtime in ATM9. So we've hit like 560 hours. I guess I'll go ahead and do the math on my phone real quick. Let's take a look. Calculator. No way. Hold on. I think I typed that in wrong. Oh my god. No, it is 596.4 hours. It is just short of 600 hours in Monifactory. So this has been a massive time sink, and I think it's starting to catch up with me pretty hard. So I'm going to be taking probably a pretty significant break for this upcoming week. So next progress log will hopefully be shorter, as I have been rambling for just under an hour at this stage about really. Oh man, I really can ramble with the best of them, huh? Alright, guys, so I hope you guys have had a good week, and I hope you guys will have a good upcoming week, and I will see you all again next week.